Hello and welcome. This is Life Choices. It's a show about people and the choices that they've made to get where they are in life today. And this particular show, it's my real honor to interview the head of our network. Now, we don't get to do that often, so I'm pretty excited. Please help me welcome Miss Temma Hammond.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm very pleased to be here, and I really appreciate you having me on your program. We're excited to have your program on our network, and so for everyone else's too, so it's a good thing.
Thank you. Yes, I'm excited to be on your network. Now, let's talk a little bit about the network, and we're going to talk a lot about you as well, but the network is for people over 50, or it's targeted to people over 50?
Correct. It's goldennetwork.tv. The dot's really important. And it's for the 50 or plus. I mean, once you get that notice from AARP, it's like, oh gosh, I'm 50 or over. So, but there's never been a network dedicated to the issues and wants and needs of that demographic. And that demographic is the largest in the world. So we figured it's a good opportunity.
It is. And what made you think of that?
Well, I'm a little bit strange. I was brought up in the movie industry and television industry, and out of Hollywood, born and raised in Hollywood, and then moved to Nevada in the early 90s, and I've been here ever since. A lot of the time here in Las Vegas, and half of the time up in northern Nevada at the Capitol. But when I came back here to live, I put in myself, I wanted to be in an area that was away from the city, the actual busyness of the Strip and everything, which is a place called Summerlin for me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realize it was a 55 or plus. Even when I moved there, I just thought it was a great place. It's beautiful views of Red Rock, and then I found out the next day that I moved here. I went, whoa, I'm in this development. And once I got here and understood, again, the needs and the wants of seniors and what they're looking for, I just thought it would be a natural thing to build a network for them to have whatever they want and to ask to have things.
I think that's very exciting and very smart on your part. Being a senior myself, I like to find out things. I like educational things about, anywhere from Medicare to health to
yes.
Travel to how to invest money and maybe how to save money and so on. So I think it's exciting that there's a network just for these types of shows. And of course, there's lots of entertainment as well, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, education is actually the bottom of everything to hold together. But if it's not presented in an entertaining way, who's going to watch it? So we try our best, and someone like you has this experience of talking to people, talking to thousands of people and sharing. That was great for us to know that we could have the ability to show people like you and how you have achieved what you're doing.
Thank you, thank you. But you also have all types of shows from the past, from when us seniors were younger people.
Yes.
Yeah, you have like Groucho Marx. I mean, I loved him when I was growing up, and I love Lucy. And
we have, it's our classic, and we have actually over 400 programs.
Oh, that's amazing.
All the way back to Betty White's first shows.
Oh, she's so wonderful.
She's a great, 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 wonderful lady. And cartoons, the old cartoons, things that had to do with family. Sort of, we don't have Leave It to Beaver, but like Leave It to Beaver kind of shows.
Yeah.
Because Leave It to Beaver is on 24 hours on your regular TV. But it's exciting to see what inspired us too is once we got the whole network up, which was at the beginning of this year. We've not been up very long, and we thought it'll all be maybe 45 older, whatever. But no, our statistics started coming in. The groups from 19 to 24 were watching us.
Yes.
We're like, whoa, that was exciting.
Yes, yes. Well, especially if you have cartoons as well, because I think even younger children want to watch cartoons. So even though we're seniors, when the grandchildren come, we can put the cartoons on.
Exactly.
And,
exactly.
And watch it together. That's what's really
It's all
cool.
new to them. Because they've never seen any of this stuff.
No.
Yeah.
No. So now your father was very well known in Hollywood. He had big studios, right?
He did. When I was born, my dad was 50 years old. So big generation gap. And his background was from the silent movies. My father's name was Harry Keaton, and not Buster, but Harry Keaton.
Yeah.
And he became so fascinated by Charlie Chaplin when my father was a kid. He started imitating him just for fun. He just did the whole bit. And as he got older, he would go down the street like that. He'd go in front of the movie theaters where they were showing Chaplin shows. And Chaplin saw him one day.
Oh my goodness.
And he came up to him and he said, "Hey kid," he said, "you do me really well." He said, "Sometimes I can't make the opening of my own shows. Would you show up for me?" Because he said, "No one will know it's you. They'll think it's me." And he'd go, "Oh," and yes, and he did. And so he started just doing that with Charlie, and they actually built studios, finally, across the street from each other in Hollywood, on a street called La Brea. And Charlie's is still there, but my dad's isn't. But it was a fascinating. So I learned about from the beginnings of Hollywood, which was a wonderful education for me.
Yes.
It sort of spoiled me because everyone did everything then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, and so I was sort of raised in that kind of atmosphere. And I was the only child. So I was with my mom and dad in studios, and it was great. I had a great childhood.
And you learned the back of the house very, very well.
Yes.
And you went on to win quite a few awards yourself for your productions.
I have. I enter into contests or film festivals and such. I want to know how I do up against my peers, you know?
Yes.
And that's the best way to do it. So, and I won a couple what they call local Emmys, and those were for 2 documentaries I did. Both of those were shot actually in northern Nevada, and one of them with the governor, Kenny Gwynn at the time, who was the governor, which was really fun.
Yeah, he's a great guy.
Oh, he was a lovely gentleman, yeah. So again, that was another whole experience for me. And I came actually to Vegas the first time because I was told they need a real studio built. And that's what my family did. They actually physically built the studio and then ran it. So I knew how to make that happen. And I came here in the early 90s, and I built 2 studios. And then by the end of the 90s, everything collapsed. And I was going to go back to LA, and they said, "No, go up to the Capitol, and we can use what you do up there." So that's why that change happened. But while I was here, my clients and everything, my first client in was Martin Scorsese.
Not too bad.
Not bad at all. Made me very happy.
And that was Casino, right?
That's right, the movie Casino.
Mm-hmm.
And they were with us for a couple months, and we built sets for them, and a bunch of wonderful, lovely people. Crazy, lovely motion picture people.
Yeah.
But it was a great experience.
I actually owned a model agency at that time, and we booked a lot of the extras for the Casino show.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of them.
Yeah, yeah, that was a fun adventure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The 90s were great here in Vegas.
Oh.
We had so much movie work going on at that time. I mean, I remember we did things for Charlie's Angels and BJ and the Bears, and we did a couple movies with Clint Eastwood.
Yes.
And, yeah, I mean, it was wonderful
It was
times.
busy, yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and you were in the big middle of it, building your studio and booking
fun.
all those people in. That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So then you went back to northern Nevada.
Yep.
And you did your documentaries at that time.
Yep. We did one called A Touch of Heaven, A Taste of Hell.
Ooh. Ooh.
And it was about extreme runners. These crazy runners that run 100 miles in one event.
Oh.
But they run it up and down Lake Tahoe.
Oh my goodness.
Which is nuts. And but they came from all over the world. And to me, that's what was so fascinating. They weren't just a bunch of young kids running.
Yes, yes.
They were up and down and up and down. And we were there the whole time, but what was more fun than just watching them run was talking to them, where they came from, you know, why they were here, why would they come across the world, you know, to go to Lake Tahoe. One gentleman, he came from China, and he was in his 40s. These weren't kids. And he said, "What do you do in China?" And he said, "I go out into the fields and find bombs that hadn't been exploded."
Oh.
Well, whoa. I mean, those kinds of stories, you never think about, gee, that's a job I'd like to have.
No.
You know, so, yeah, it was a great experience. I liked it a lot.
Wow, that's amazing. And then didn't you do one about wild horses?
Oh, yes. Yes. Northern Nevada is famous for the feat of wild horses. There's many up there, and the poor things don't really have a place to stay, and so they get out in the street, they get run over, they cause accidents, cars. So it's a big problem, and the lady that has gone after this to help them to try to build a sanctuary is a lady called Lacey J. Dalton. Lacey J. is a wonderful country western singer.
Really?
Many, many, many years. She has so many fans. And she lives up there. And we met, and she said, well, people need to see, you know, what's going on with these beautiful animals. And so we did a lot of work with her. We did documentaries, we did news pieces, where I actually followed when they released, I think it was like 20 horses to a wild place that was safe. And I'm a horse nut, so it was perfect for me. And what was funny, I had a young cameraman, and I said, we've got to get really close to these horses, and you're not allowed to touch or feed them or anything. And so he says, okay. And so when we brought him up to let him go, they were in big trailers. And I said, what I want you to do, I want you to get underneath the trailer, and I want you to have your camera pointed up, so we actually see them leaping out of those trailers.
Oh.
Because that's a little dangerous. I said, no, you'll be okay. You got wood over you. And they went, oh, okay, Temma. And he did. And it was great. He got great shots.
Oh, that's amazing.
It's always something, it's always an adventure. It really is.
I think you make it the adventure. They should have you in Washington State up around Omak. They have a wild horse. No, they're not wild. They're ridden by cowboys, but they come over this mountain and they jump down.
Oh, Lord.
It's a race, you know,
Yeah,
that they
yeah.
do.
Oh.
Yeah, you'd be good there. You know,
I'd have
you'd
fun.
have a cameraman right underneath. That could be amazing.
What the heck? It either works or it doesn't.
Yeah. Is there anything that you still want to do, any documentary on any particular animal or area that you would still like to do, that you'd like to create?
Yeah, documentaries to me are fascinating because they're real. They're the real stories. And people, I don't think there's a person alive that doesn't have a story. I mean, you're capturing stories.
Yes.
You're talking to these people of what things they've accomplished and what they're wanting to do. I would like to take that maybe to a next step, to a more of like a movie situation where we have several of them and they cross paths and things. It's fascinating. I mean, artists, to me, I took art a lot in school because I thought that was something I'd want to do. Unfortunately, I was not very good. But just the idea of creating something from paint or from charcoal or crayons, whatever, and to see people that have accomplished that, I look for that a lot, like on Facebook, people that have done those things, and you were one of them that I've watched and went, oh my gosh, she can just sit and create these beautiful pieces. And some of them really move me. I mean, there's one that you did that you just were so kind to give me that piece.
What was your birthday?
Well, of course, and I deserve that.
Got to give people presents on their birthday.
But I saw it the first time and I just cried. It was just beautiful. It was such feeling because artists paint from the heart and the soul. And I like that. So more and more of that I'd like to do.
It was interesting because that particular piece kind of painted itself. I had a bunch of orange paint left over, and it was on a paper plate, and
Yeah.
I thought, well, let's see what we can do with this, and I smacked it onto a canvas, and then I just kind of smeared it, and I looked at it, and I thought, oh, that looks like an African choir. And then I started putting their heads on them and their arms on them, and
It was
it
awesome.
turned into a great painting. Yeah.
Oh, it's just beautiful.
It's amazing. I put it on Facebook, and I thought a few people might like it. And of course, you said it made you cry, and then I said you had to own it because
Yes.
if my art makes you cry, you need to have it. But it was interesting how many people really loved it.
Yeah.
You know, and I was just like, oh, I just did it with a paper plate, you know. But now that I did that, I've done a couple more, and they've come out really
Yeah,
fun.
see?
Yeah.
It just
so
opens.
See, you could come to my art class, and you
I
can
would
just
love that.
put your paint on a paper plate and go
Just
smack,
smash it.
and we'll come up with great paintings.
I'm going to do that.
Yeah, I'd love to have you.
Find me an hour free, and I will be there.
Okay, we'll do it. Well, I have to tell you, it's such a pleasure to have you here. I think, you know, the audience never gets to meet the people who are really behind
Sure.
these networks and behind the scenes and the whole thing. And here you are, you're at an age where you could retire.
Yes,
you know,
easily.
But you're not. You're creating this whole new television network. What made you make the choice to do that rather than just say, okay, I'm going to just take a leisurely life now?
Well, when I came back to Vegas the second time, I really thought I would do that, and I thought I'd just teach a few classes. I've taught for 50 years.
I know you teach at UNLV, don't you?
Yeah, I teach, and I teach acting for camera, and I teach improvisation, which is what everyone does every day and gets scared when you say the word. But it's very simple. But I started doing that, and then I would go home. I was only maybe at the university a couple times a week. Then I'd go home, and I'd just sit and look and go, wait a minute, this is not doing it. And then I learned about the whole world of streaming. I didn't know what that was.
Yeah.
I know cable, I know TV, I know movies. So I started learning about it, and I understood the prospects of that is today. It's not just the future. So if I'm going to stay in the industry, I better learn what's going on.
Yes.
And the more I learned, and I got a really good team of people that are the technicians and such, because I cannot do that, it was very exciting. And then to be able to get on Roku, and Roku is huge. It's like Netflix, you know. In fact, it's probably rivaling Netflix right now. We were honored to be able to pass all the restrictions we needed to pass to get on there, and now we are.
That's quite a lot of restrictions.
There is. Yeah, there are rules. And the rules keep changing, which make you crazy because it's such a new technology. I mean, I would say every 3 months something happens that changes, and we have to catch up to it. And we have to fix stuff that we did because it doesn't fit the new changes. So
exactly.
It's a lot of stuff.
Exactly. You know, technology is causing our world to change so rapidly. I was having a friend with lunch with a friend who's another artist yesterday, and we were talking about the change that our parents went through.
Oh my, yeah.
And compared to the change we're going through now. And we were wondering, did it seem as stressful for them as it seemed for us? Because, you know, our parents were here before trains, before airplanes, before
they were
any
depression
of those
people.
things. Yeah.
They lived through, boy, you think we have tough times? Whoa.
Yeah.
Those were tough times.
Exactly. And now we're going through all this change. It makes me wonder, what is life going to be like in 10 years?
Yeah.
What do you see this industry here being like in 10 years?
It'll change so much, and it'll be so automatic. I think it's the only thing that distresses me a bit is the automatic. From knowing from my dad in the era of some silent movies moving up, how hard everyone worked to create. And it was all hands-on, and it was all teamwork. Everyone worked that way. Now it's push a button. Push a button does it. Push a button even replaces actors. I mean, CGI, all of this stuff. And it's like, wow, it took, for me, it took the heart and soul of that kind of creation and replaced it with technology, which is fantastic. I mean, it is fantastic. I mean, between medicine and everything else and travel, I understand it's a necessity, we need it, but for me, I miss, you know, people go, they'll come to me and say, I got this idea for a show, can we get it up next Tuesday? There's a few things you have to do before you get the show up, but people don't realize because they see it on television or on their iPad or their phone. It's like, well, it's just there, it's automatic. I got the idea and we threw it up. No, there's so much more to it. And now technology is actually more, because if you don't know the technology, you're not going to be playing with the guys. It's not the game anymore.
Yeah.
It's tough.
And it's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. People say, well, what do you do on Sundays? I work. I don't know a Sunday. I know every day and what I have to get done.
Yeah.
But it's good for me. I mean, I feel busy. I feel I'm doing something for my community, for the senior demographic and their families. I mean, our mission statement is for seniors, their families and friends. It goes all the way down. So I like it. It feels good. In the next, let's put the next 5 years. 5 years, I like to say, okay, we've got it in the place we need it to be. Let the younger ones come in. They got a lot more energy than we do, and let them handle it, and that's fine. I'm very happy with that.
I believe that we're all creative, that everyone has the ability to create
Absolutely.
things. But so many of us have been held back. So many people have been criticized, especially young people when they're children or teenagers. They've been told to be seen and not heard,
Yes.
and to. Do you think that most of us have the ability to do something
I do.
creative?
I do. And it could be a simple thing. It could be, you know, from cooking. I mean, what's the biggest network? The Food Network. And we're watching all kinds of people cook all kinds of things, and we're watching kids, and they compete. I mean, but these are all artists. They're crafts that you have to make something happen. So I think that's worth everyone, all over the world. When I first learned about the streaming thing, I started investigating the world. Who has tablets? Who had, well, everyone does. I remember looking in pictures in Africa, out in the bush, and these ladies with the big baskets, you know, and the
on their
things on their
heads.
head, balancing them fine, and as they're walking, they're on their phone. I'm going, I just couldn't believe that. How does that happen? But that's the way it is now.
Yeah.
You know, so it's part of our everyday lives. That to me is amazing.
Well, I have to tell you, when I lived in Africa, which was in the 1990s, we had cell phones back then that were more clear, and we could reach other parts of the world easier than they did here in America. I just remember I called someone in San Diego one day, and it was so clear, and they were talking to me, and they said, "Where are you?" I said, "Oh, I'm in the bush." And they said, "In the bush? But what do you mean in the bush?" I said, "Oh, I'm outside of Johannesburg in the bush." And
Yes.
and they're like, "You're calling me from Africa on a cell phone?" Yes.
It's awesome.
Because now people have that
That's
technology.
it. It's available to everyone. Now, you've been questioning me, and that's fine, and thank you for letting me do that. But you know what? I need to question you.
Uh-oh.
And the more I know about you and your past, I want to know, what are you looking to do in the future with what you do?
Well, I'm loving what I'm doing here at the Golden Network, this interviewing of people. I've learned so much just in the short time. You know, I've done TV shows before.
Sure.
But I haven't worked with someone like you before that gives me good direction and helps me learn from each experience that I do. So it's been a real pleasure being here with you. And I've interviewed some exciting and interesting people. And especially in this age bracket, asking people who are 50, 60, 70, 80 years old, why did you make the choice to do what you did, and how did you end up in this particular situation? And listening to their stories, I mean, I love this. I'm hoping that I can do this forever because it's so fun.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is. It is. I've had a couple of really interesting functional doctors on.
Sure.
I've had anti-aging doctors. I've had, well, George Chanos, who's
yes, amazing.
Former Attorney General of the state of Nevada, but
Right.
he's kind of a futurist. He
very much
tells
so.
us what's going to happen in the next 30 years.
Yeah.
And that was exciting, really.
People like that are fascinating. Yep. Because you do that as your career, and I know a little bit about your past, not a lot, but you told me a few days ago things that you did as in the modeling world. Would you share a couple of stories, especially the one about, I think it was fur coats?
Oh, that's interesting. I, back in the, goodness, it would have been the 1970s, I opened Universal Models here in Las Vegas. I had been Wendy Ward for the Montgomery Ward department stores, and they had like 500 stores across the nation back then. It was a big chain, and they had, oh goodness, they must have had about 400 and something Wendy Ward directors. There was one in almost every store. And I was hired here in Las Vegas for the one here, and we were like on the bottom of the rung as far as having people attend and having success with it and so on. And in a little over a year, we took it to #1 in the nation.
Wow.
And it was so exciting. It was such a wonderful journey. And then I got real cocky. I was young and a bit of a smart aleck, and I thought, if I could do this for Montgomery Wards, I could do this for myself. So I took my savings, which was a total of $2,000, And I went out and started my own Universal Models finishing school and model agency. I was open about 2 weeks when it was the first time in history that every light on the Las Vegas Strip turned out. They had a big strike.
Oh.
And so nobody was going to hire models, and nobody was going to send their kids to modeling school. And I didn't know what I was going to do. I was almost out of money, and I went to my landlord and said, I don't know how I'm going to pay the rent. And he said, well, honey, the man next door bet me you couldn't last in business 6 months, and I bet him you could. He said,
dear.
if you can hang in there 6 months, we'll make enough money that it'll pay your rent. Well, I did it, and I hung in there 6 months, and he won his bet. And so that was the beginnings of Universal Models. And
Awesome.
we went on to do all kinds of big fashion shows. But I think the one you're referring to is we were doing the Teamsters Union. The big Teamsters Union
sure.
was having their convention here in Las Vegas, and they hired me to do their spouse program for all the wives of all of these Teamsters. I can't remember exactly how many, but we filled the showroom at the Hilton Hotel. It was a big show.
It's a full house.
Yeah, we did a really phenomenal fashion show for them. And they wanted to give the ladies in the audience fur coats. And so I got sent off to make a deal with a furrier, and I made a deal, and we got fur coats for all the ladies in the.
That's amazing. Actually, they left there with everyone had a fur coat.
Yeah, they weren't big, long, expensive coats, but they all had like stoles and little jackets, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really a fun. I don't know if I should say that we did that with the Teamsters back then,
it's
because
wonderful.
Maybe the
Teamsters are just okay.
Maybe the Teamsters will get in trouble for spending all their money on fur coats. But no, it was a big production, and it was done well, and the ladies loved it. And
I bet.
Believe me, they came back, and they supported their Teamster husbands even more than ever before.
That's awesome. Boy, what a gift.
So that was one of the shows we did. We did shows on almost every stage in Las Vegas. I've from the Hacienda, back when it was really big, and it had the most beautiful stage. You could see up through. It was like a mother of pearl stage,
lovely,
sort of thing.
yes.
And the Tropicana with its beautiful big stage with the passerella on the front of it, and the water fountains coming up. And
classy, nice things.
Yes, and we did almost every stage in town. I mean, we did the Desert Inn and the Desert Inn Country Club, and I was hired by the Desert Inn Hotel when they did a big reopening to furnish them with 100 and something girls, all same height, all same color hair, all dressed in same dresses for hostesses throughout the whole hotel, and explaining each room and everything. That was just amazing. We just did so many wonderful things back then, from booking people for movies to doing commercials to the spouse programs were very big at that time. So we were constantly creating a fashion show or some kind of a spectacular show and putting in entertainment. I remember when I asked the Teamsters, can you give me an entertainer to be in my show? And they said, yes. Does he have to be at rehearsal? And I said, yes. And so in comes these 4 big men. I didn't see the little guy in between these 4 huge men. They were like security guards. They come walking in, and they said, oh, he's here, for rehearsal. And it was Sammy Davis Jr.
Oh, gosh.
And he was so wonderful.
Oh.
He was so great to work with.
Talk about an entertainer and an artist. He could do it all.
Oh, he was fabulous.
Yeah.
And he was such a kind, wonderful man to work with.
He was a good man.
Oh, I loved him.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was
wonderful stuff.
It was an incredible time to be in this city doing the things that we've done.
Yeah.
I thank you for asking me these questions.
Well, people want to know. I mean, you're sitting here asking everyone else questions. In fact, I'm going to give it back to you, and because this is your show. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I felt that people needed to know who Judy is.
Thank you.
And that's just a little teeny part of who you are.
Oh yeah, that's a big part of who I was. I don't think that's who I am today. But
no, you're more. Look what you've done, what you've created, and now look what you're doing.
Thank you.
It's fantastic.
Thank you. Well, I have to tell you, this has been a pleasure. I was so honored when you said you'd come and be on my show.
Please.
Because, like I said before, people never get the chance to see who creates this,
That's true.
who makes it happen, who makes the dream come true. And you know, these people are sitting at home, aren't you? You're sitting at home.
Sitting at home.
And you're looking at the TV and you're watching all these shows, but you don't know that this woman is the one who thought it up. She made the dream come true. She made it happen. And she's the same age as some of you, or maybe even older than some people.
I'm sure.
And sometimes I think when people are in our age bracket, we think, well, there's nothing else for us to do.
Oh, no,
you
that's
know.
so untrue.
It is.
It's so untrue.
It is so untrue. And look, I mean, you're just an inspiration to everybody.
Well, thank you.
I
As
mean,
you are, Judy, we need to share. We're doing things, helping our communities, which in turn help ourselves and our families. You know, I have 2 children, 3 grandchildren, and they go, yay, Nana. You know, that's a good thing. I like that.
Well, I think it gives them hope, too. You know,
Yeah.
they look at you and they say, well, my Nana can do it. I can do it, too, as I grow
Hopefully
older.
so.
Yeah.
Hopefully so. Yeah.
I know I do. I know I really appreciate when older people are still doing things, creating things, making things happen. So thank you for being here with us today.
Oh, it's been a joy. Thank you.
And thank you for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here. And I hope you enjoyed meeting Temma as much as I enjoyed sharing her with you, you know, to have her express to you how she came up with this idea and made it happen. And, you know, you can make it happen too. Just make good choices.
Choices. We have choices. They are the source of the success in our lives. When things happen to us, we can choose to believe they happened for a reason. We can discover opportunities in the most difficult experiences if we are willing to look for them. It is what we choose to think about each experience that determines how we respond to it. How we respond determines whether or not we find richer, more purposeful, more joyful lives. We are the only ones who can choose our attitudes and the principles that we live by. Choose well, my friends. Choose well.